He thought his badge made him untouchable until the courtroom doors opened and the most powerful man in the room wasn't wearing a police uniform. What you're about to see will make your blood boil, but stick around because the ending will restore your faith in justice. Picture this. It's a warm Saturday night in Norfolk, Virginia. The kind of night where families walk the streets, kids play in the park, and the smell of barbecue drifts from backyard cookouts. Two friends sit in Tony's Diner, a small family restaurant known for the best fried chicken in town. Meet James Washington and Marcus Cole. To anyone watching, they look like two regular guys sharing a meal and laughing about old times. But these two men are far from ordinary. Both are Navy SEALs who have served multiple tours overseas. Both have saved lives, protected freedom, and earned medals most people only see in movies. James takes a bite of his chicken and grins. "Man, Marcus, remember when you said you could eat anything after those MREs in Afghanistan?" Marcus laughs, wiping sauce from his chin. "Don't even start. You were the one crying over cold beans for 3 weeks straight." They both crack up, the kind of deep laugh that only comes from shared hardship and brotherhood. These two have been through hell together. Desert storms in Iraq, dangerous missions in the dark waters off Somalia, times when they didn't know if they'd see home again. But tonight, they're just two friends enjoying freedom they fought to protect. James leans back in the booth, looking around the cozy restaurant. "You know what I love about this place? Nobody stares, nobody asks questions. We're just regular people here." Marcus nods, understanding exactly what he means. After years of being soldiers first, it feels good to just be human. Outside the window, life moves at its normal pace. Cars drive by slowly. A couple walks their dog. An old man waters his garden across the street. It's the kind of peaceful American scene they risked their lives to preserve. But peace can shatter in an instant, and tonight, it's about to. As they finish their meal and prepare to leave, neither man notices the police car that has been circling the block for the past 10 minutes. Neither sees the officer inside watching them through the window with suspicious eyes. Officer Derek Mills sits behind the wheel, his jaw tight, his mind already made up about what he thinks he sees. To him, these aren't war heroes or protectors of freedom. They're just two black men in his neighborhood, and in his twisted mind, that makes them a problem. Mills pulls into the parking lot as James and Marcus walk out of the diner. The night air is cool and clean, carrying the sound of distant music from a block party down the street. Both men are relaxed, full from good food, ready to head home and get some rest. James pulls out his keys to his silver Honda, a car he bought with money saved during his last deployment. It's nothing fancy, but it's his, and he's proud of it. "Thanks for dinner, brother," Marcus says, giving James a quick handshake. "Same time next week?" James grins. "Wouldn't miss it. Drive safe." It's a simple moment between friends, the kind of moment that happens thousands of times every day across America. But this simple moment is about to become anything but simple. The sound of a car door slamming cuts through the peaceful night. Both men turn to see Officer Mills walking toward them, his hand already resting on his gun. His face is hard, angry, like he's already decided they've done something wrong. James frowns, immediately alert. Years of military training have taught him to read danger, and right now, every alarm bell in his head is going off. "Evening, officer," James says calmly, his voice respectful but cautious. "Is there a problem?" Mills doesn't answer right away. Instead, he looks at the car, then at both men, his eyes cold and calculating. "Whose vehicle is this?" he demands, his tone sharp and aggressive. Marcus steps slightly closer to James, sensing the tension. "It's his car, officer. We just finished dinner." Mills narrows his eyes, clearly not satisfied with the answer. "I'm going to need to see some identification. Both of you." There's nothing wrong with asking for ID, but the way he says it, the tone in his voice, makes it clear this isn't a routine request. This is a power play, and both James and Marcus know it. James reaches slowly for his wallet, making sure his movements are clear and non-threatening. "Of course, officer. No problem." He pulls out his driver's license and military ID, handing them over with steady hands. Marcus does the same, his military bearing evident even in this tense moment. Mills takes the IDs but barely glances at them. Instead, he seems more interested in looking for reasons to escalate the situation. "You two been drinking tonight?" The question hangs in the air like a trap. James shakes his head. "No, sir, just had dinner. We can provide receipts if you need them." But Mills isn't interested in receipts or proof or anything that might contradict the story he's already writing in his head. He's made his decision about these two men based on nothing more than the color of their skin and his own twisted prejudices. What he doesn't know is that he's about to make the biggest mistake of his career. What he doesn't realize is that he's not dealing with ordinary citizens he can bully and intimidate. He's facing two of America's most elite warriors, men who have faced down terrorists and lived to tell about it. The tension in the parking lot grows thicker with each passing second. James and Marcus exchange a quick look, communicating without words the way only close friends can. They both know this situation is about to get worse before it gets better. They both know that their military training, their service to their country, their clean records mean nothing to the man standing in front of them. But what Officer Mills doesn't know, what he can't even imagine, is that his actions tonight will set in motion a chain of events that will expose his corruption to the world. He doesn't know that these two men have friends in very high places. He doesn't know that his lies will crumble under the weight of truth. All he knows is that he has power, a badge, and two men he thinks he can control. He's about to learn how wrong he is. Mills hands back their IDs with a smirk that makes both men's skin crawl. "Step away from the vehicle," he orders, his voice getting louder. "I need to search it." James keeps his cool, but confusion shows in his eyes. "Officer, what's this about?" "We haven't done anything wrong." "I'll decide what's wrong," Mills snaps back, pulling out his flashlight even though the parking lot is well lit. "Move away from the car, now." Marcus raises his hand slightly, showing he's not a threat. "Sir, we're both active military. We served overseas. There's no need for this." Mills laughs, a cold, ugly sound. "Oh, now you're war heroes? Real convenient. I've heard that one before." He shines his flashlight directly in their faces, forcing them to squint. Hands on the hood of the car. "Both of you." The demand hits both men like a slap. James feels his jaw tighten, years of military discipline fighting against the urge to speak up. Marcus's hands curl into fists at his sides, but he forces them to relax. They've both been in war zones, faced enemy fire, survived impossible missions. But nothing prepared them for this moment, standing in their own country, being treated like criminals by the very system they swore to protect. "Officer Mills," James says, reading the name tag. "I'm Lieutenant James Washington, U.S. Navy SEALs. This is Petty Officer Marcus Cole. We can show you our military cards again if you need verification." But Mills isn't listening. In his mind, he's already decided these men are guilty of something, anything. He needs them to be guilty to justify what he's about to do. "I said hands on the hood!" he shouts loud enough that people inside the diner start looking out the windows. Marcus leans toward James, whispering, "This is insane. We should call someone." James nods slightly but keeps his eyes on Mills. "Let's just comply. Don't give him any excuse to make this worse." Both men place their hands on the warm metal of the Honda's hood. The position is humiliating, degrading, especially for men who have earned the right to hold their heads high. Mills begins searching them, his hands rough and invasive. He's looking for weapons, drugs, anything that might justify his actions. But these men are clean, professionals who don't even have parking tickets on their records. A small crowd starts to gather. Other diners come out to watch. A woman pulls out her phone to record. Mills notices and gets angry. "Move along!" he yells at the crowd. Nothing to see here, but people don't move. Something about this scene doesn't feel right to them either. Mills finds nothing in his search, which only makes him angrier. He needs something, anything, to make this arrest stick. That's when he makes his next move, the one that will ultimately destroy his career. "You're both under arrest for disorderly conduct and resisting arrest." James spins around, shock on his face. "Resisting arrest? We've done everything you asked." Marcus steps forward, his military bearing evident even with his hands cuffed behind his back. "This is harassment, officer." "We haven't resisted anything." Mills grins, enjoying their confusion and anger. "You raised your voices. You questioned my authority. That's resisting in my book. The logic is twisted, insane, but Mills doesn't care. He has the power, the badge, and in his experience, that's all that matters. The cold metal handcuffs click shut around their wrists. Both men have been restrained before during military training, but this feels different. This feels like injustice in its purest form. James looks at Marcus, seeing his own anger reflected in his friend's eyes. "This isn't over," James says quietly. Mills overhears and leans close, his breath hot against James's ear. "Oh, it's over, hero. It's over before it started. You think anyone's going to believe two troublemakers over a police officer? Think again." As they're pushed toward the patrol car, Marcus manages to catch the eye of the woman recording with her phone. "Please," he says, just loud enough for her to hear. "Please post that video. Tell people what really happened here." The woman nods, her face serious. She's witnessed something terrible tonight, and she knows it. Mills shoves both men into the back of the patrol car, slamming the door with unnecessary force. Through the bulletproof glass, they watch the crowd of witnesses, knowing that their testimony might be the only thing standing between truth and Mills's lies. The drive to the police station is silent except for the radio chatter. Mills calls in his arrest, describing it as a routine stop that turned confrontational. He's already rewriting history, turning victims into villains. James and Marcus sit in the back, their minds racing. They've been in tighter spots than this, but those were in foreign countries against declared enemies. This is different. This is betrayal by their own system. At the station, Mills parades them through the building like trophies. Other officers look up from their desks, some with confusion, others with the kind of recognition that suggests this isn't Mills's first questionable arrest. A younger officer, Rodriguez, approaches Mills with concern. "Derek, what's the story here? These guys look pretty clean-cut." Mills brushes him off. "Looks can be deceiving, Rodriguez. These two were causing problems, resisting commands, standard stuff." But Rodriguez doesn't look convinced. He's seen Mills work before, and something about this doesn't add up. The booking process is designed to strip away dignity, and Mills takes his time with each step. Fingerprints, photos, personal belongings confiscated. Through it all, James and Marcus maintain their composure, their military training helping them endure the humiliation. But inside, they're both burning with anger at the injustice of it all. "You get one phone call each," Mills tells them, clearly enjoying himself. James uses his to call his sister, asking her to contact their commanding officer. Marcus calls his lawyer, a friend from law school who specializes in civil rights cases. Both calls are brief, but they plant seeds that will eventually grow into Mills's downfall. As they're led to a holding cell, Mills can't resist one final taunt. "Hope you boys are comfortable. Could be a long night. Judge won't see you until Monday, and my report's going to be very thorough." He walks away laughing, convinced he's won this round. But in that cell, sitting on hard benches under flickering fluorescent lights, James and Marcus aren't defeated. They're planning. They know their rights, know the system, and most importantly, they know they're innocent. Mills may have won this battle, but the war is far from over. "He has no idea who he just messed with," Marcus says quietly. James nods, his jaw set with determination. "No idea at all." Officer Mills sits at his desk in the station, feeling pretty good about himself. The overhead lights buzz and flicker, casting weird shadows across his face as he types up his report. He's done this before, knows exactly what words to use to make his story sound believable. His fingers move quickly across the keyboard, each lie flowing easier than the last. "Suspects were acting suspicious near vehicle," he types, pausing to take a sip of cold coffee. "When approached, both became hostile and non-compliant. Raised voices, aggressive postures, refused to follow direct orders." He grins as he writes, knowing that each word is a nail in James and Marcus's coffin. Another officer, Sergeant Thompson, walks by and glances at Mills's screen. "Those two guys you brought in seem pretty calm to me," Thompson says, leaning against the desk. "You sure about this report?" Mills doesn't even look up from his typing. "They put on an act once they got here." "You didn't see them outside." "Trust me, Thompson, I know trouble when I see it." But Thompson has been a cop for 20 years, and his gut tells him something's not right. He's worked with Mills before, seen him push boundaries, make questionable calls. Derek, if these guys really are military like they claim, this could blow up in your face. Mills finally stops typing and looks up, his eyes cold. Since when do we take criminals at their word? They could have bought those fake IDs anywhere. Thompson shakes his head and walks away, but his words stick with Mills more than he'd like to admit. For just a moment, doubt creeps into his mind. What if they really are SEALs? What if he's made a mistake? But he pushes the thought away, convincing himself that he's in control, that his badge gives him the power to decide truth from lies. Meanwhile, in the holding cell, James and Marcus are having their own conversation. The cell is small, cold, with concrete walls that seem to close in around them. A single bench runs along one wall, and a small window near the ceiling shows a slice of night sky. You know what the worst part is? James says, staring at the ceiling. We fought in 3 different countries to protect the rights this man just trampled on. Marcus nods, his hands clasped behind his head. Remember Kandahar? That night mission where we had to extract those hostages? James turns to look at his friend. Course I do. You saved my life that night. And you've saved mine more times than I can count, Marcus replies. We've been through hell together, earned our place, proved our worth. And this cop looks at us and sees nothing but trouble. The conversation drifts to their families, their hopes, their dreams beyond the military. James talks about his daughter, how proud she was when he graduated SEAL training. Marcus mentions his mom, how she cried when he told her he was deploying to protect other people's children. These aren't just soldiers sitting in this cell. They're sons, brothers, fathers, men with lives and loves and reasons to come home safe. My daughter's only 8, James says quietly. What do I tell her when she asks why Daddy got arrested? How do I explain that sometimes the good guys don't win just because they're good? Marcus doesn't have an easy answer because there isn't one. Sometimes the system fails, sometimes bad people win, sometimes good people suffer for no reason at all. But while they're talking, something important is happening outside the station. James's sister Maria is making phone calls. She starts with their commanding officer, Admiral Richard Hayes, a man who's known both James and Marcus for years. Sir, she says, her voice shaking with anger, my brother and his friend have been arrested for nothing. They were just having dinner. Admiral Hayes is in his office, even though it's late Saturday night. The Navy doesn't sleep, and neither does he. When he hears Maria's story, his face grows dark with anger. He's known James Washington for 5 years, watched him rise through the ranks, seen him risk his life for his country and his fellow soldiers. The idea that James would cause trouble in a restaurant is so ridiculous, it's almost funny. Give me all the details, Hayes says, grabbing a pen and paper. As Maria tells him what she knows, the Admiral's anger grows. This isn't just an attack on 2 individuals. This is an attack on the uniform they wear, the service they provide, the sacrifices they make. Within an hour, Hayes has made a dozen phone calls. He talks to the police chief, the mayor, the local news stations. He pulls strings, calls in favors, and makes it clear that this situation will not be swept under the rug. By Sunday morning, the story is spreading through military channels like wildfire. SEALs don't abandon their own, and word is getting out that 2 of their brothers need help. Back at the station, Mills finishes his report and prints it out. He's proud of his work, convinced that his version of events will stand up in court. What he doesn't know is that his lies are about to be exposed in the most public way possible. What he doesn't realize is that he's picked a fight with people who have friends in very high places. Sunday morning arrives with news vans parked outside the courthouse. Somehow, word has gotten out about the arrest of 2 Navy SEALs, and the story is growing legs. Mills watches from his car as reporters set up cameras and microphones, and for the first time, he feels a flutter of nervousness in his stomach. It's just media noise, he tells himself, adjusting his uniform in the rearview mirror. Judge will see right through it. My word against theirs, and I'm the cop. But even as he says it, he doesn't sound as confident as before. Inside the courthouse, James and Marcus are brought in wearing orange jumpsuits, their hands cuffed, looking nothing like the heroes they really are. The public defender assigned to their case is overwhelmed, clearly out of his depth. Look, he tells them quietly, Officer Mills has a solid record. His report is detailed. This is going to be tough to fight. James looks at the lawyer with steady eyes. We're innocent. Completely innocent. There were witnesses, probably security cameras. This isn't about what's tough to fight. This is about what's right. But the lawyer just shrugs, already thinking about his next case, already convinced that this one is a lost cause. The courtroom fills up with spectators, reporters and curious citizens who've heard about the case on the morning news. Judge Patricia Coleman takes her seat, a stern woman with 30 years of experience separating truth from lies. She's seen it all, heard every excuse, witnessed every kind of human drama play out in her courtroom. Mills sits in the front row, his uniform pressed and perfect, his badge polished to a shine. He nods respectfully at the judge, plays the part of the professional officer just doing his job. When his turn comes to testify, he tells his story with practiced ease, painting James and Marcus as aggressive, uncooperative, dangerous. Your Honor, he says, his voice confident and clear, these men refused to comply with lawful orders. They raised their voices, clenched their fists, created a threatening situation. I had no choice but to arrest them for the safety of the community. It's all lies, but Mills tells them so smoothly, so convincingly, that even some people in the courtroom start to believe him. This is how the system can fail, how innocent people can be crushed by those who abuse their power. But justice has a way of finding the light, especially when the truth has powerful allies. Judge Coleman listens to Mills's testimony with a neutral expression, taking notes, asking occasional questions. To everyone in the courtroom, it looks like just another routine case. A police officer's word against two defendants, and historically, that's not a fight the defendants usually win. Mills finishes his testimony and sits back down, confident that he's painted a convincing picture. James and Marcus sit at the defendant's table, their public defender shuffling through papers nervously. The lawyer whispers to them, "The officer's story sounds believable. Without strong evidence to contradict him, this is going to be very difficult." Both men keep their composure, but inside they're frustrated. They know the truth, but truth without proof is just another story. Judge Coleman calls for a brief recess before hearing from the defense. As people start to leave their seats and stretch, the heavy courthouse doors at the back of the room slowly open. At first, nobody pays much attention. Courtrooms have people coming and going all day. But then someone in the gallery gasps. Walking through those doors is a tall man in a perfect navy dress uniform. His chest is covered with ribbons and medals that tell the story of a lifetime of service. His posture is straight, his presence commanding, and his face shows the kind of authority that doesn't need to announce itself. This is Admiral Richard Hayes, and his arrival changes everything. Mills turns around to see what's causing the stir, and when he spots the Admiral, his face goes pale. The confidence drains from his eyes, replaced by something that looks a lot like fear. He whispers to himself, "What is he doing here?" Admiral Hayes walks slowly down the center aisle, his eyes fixed on James and Marcus. Every person in that courtroom can feel the power radiating from this man. He's not just wearing a uniform, he's wearing the respect that comes from decades of service, from commanding men in life-and-death situations, from earning his place at the very top of the military hierarchy. Judge Coleman returns to her seat and notices the Admiral immediately. "Sir, I wasn't aware we had military personnel observing today. May I ask your business in my courtroom?" Admiral Hayes stands at attention and speaks in a voice that carries to every corner of the room. "Your Honor, I am Admiral Richard Hayes, Naval Special Warfare Command. I'm here regarding Lieutenant James Washington and Petty Officer Marcus Cole." The courtroom buzzes with whispers. Reporters frantically scribble notes. Mills shifts uncomfortably in his seat, suddenly looking much smaller than he did a few minutes ago. Judge Coleman leans forward with interest. "Admiral, these men are facing charges of disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. What is your interest in this case?" Hayes reaches into his jacket and pulls out a thick folder. "Your Honor, these men are not criminals. They are two of the finest soldiers I have ever had the privilege to command. Lieutenant Washington has served 3 tours overseas, earned a Bronze Star for valor, and has a spotless record of service. Petty Officer Cole has saved American lives in combat and has never received so much as a reprimand. He walks forward and places the folder on the judge's bench. In this folder are their complete service records, commendations, character references from commanding officers, and testimony from fellow soldiers. These men have risked their lives for this country more times than most of us can imagine. The judge opens the folder and begins reading, her eyebrows rising as she takes in page after page of exemplary service records. Mills watches nervously, sweat starting to form on his forehead. This isn't how his plan was supposed to work out. Admiral Hayes turns to face Mills directly, and when he speaks, his voice carries the weight of absolute authority. Officer Mills, you've accused these men of being aggressive and uncooperative. But I've seen them in combat situations where most men would panic, and they remained calm and professional. I've seen them make split-second decisions under enemy fire that saved dozens of lives. Are you seriously telling this court that these same men lost control during a routine traffic stop? Mills tries to maintain his composure, but his voice cracks slightly when he responds. Admiral, with all due respect, military service doesn't excuse criminal behavior. These men were clearly... But Hayes cuts him off with a look that could melt steel. Criminal behavior? Hayes says, his voice growing louder. Officer Mills, do you know what real criminal behavior looks like? It looks like lying under oath. It looks like filing false reports. It looks like abusing the power that citizens have entrusted to you. The courtroom is dead silent now. Even the court reporter has stopped typing, staring at the drama unfolding before her. Mills is visibly sweating, his carefully constructed story starting to crumble under the weight of truth. Judge Coleman closes the folder and looks up. Admiral Hayes, while I appreciate your testimony about these men's character, I still need to determine what happened that night. Do you have any evidence beyond their service records? Hayes smiles grimly and nods toward the back of the courtroom. Actually, Your Honor, I do. Maria Washington, could you come forward, please? James's sister stands up from the gallery holding a tablet in her hands. She's been working all night, and her efforts are about to pay off. Your Honor, Maria says as she approaches the bench, I contacted the restaurant where my brother and Marcus had dinner. They have security cameras that recorded everything that happened in the parking lot that night. Mills's face goes white. In all his planning, he never thought to check for security cameras. The tablet is connected to the courtroom's display system, and suddenly everyone can see the truth. The video shows James and Marcus leaving the restaurant, laughing and relaxed. It shows Mills approaching aggressively, his hand on his weapon. It shows both men complying with every order, hands visible, movements slow and non-threatening. It shows Mills handcuffing them despite their complete cooperation. The evidence is overwhelming, undeniable, and completely contradicts Mills's testimony. Gasps echo through the courtroom as people realize they've witnessed a lie being exposed in real time. Mills tries to stand up, perhaps to run, but his legs won't support him. Judge Coleman's face shows barely controlled anger as she watches the video. When it ends, she turns to Mills with fury in her eyes. Officer Mills, your testimony was completely false. These men offered no resistance, showed no aggression, and were clearly the victims of harassment and false arrest. She slams her gavel down hard. I'm dismissing all charges against Lieutenant Washington and Petty Officer Cole immediately. Furthermore, I'm ordering an investigation into Officer Mills for perjury and misconduct. The bailiff moves toward Mills, who looks like he wants to disappear into the floor. Admiral Hayes approaches James and Marcus as their handcuffs are removed. I'm proud of how you handled yourselves, he says quietly. You remained professional even when the system failed you. Both men salute their commanding officer, their dignity restored, their names cleared. But Hayes isn't finished. He turns to address the packed courtroom, his voice carrying clearly to the reporters and cameras. What happened here today is a reminder that justice requires vigilance. These men served their country with honor, but they shouldn't have needed their service records to be treated fairly. Every citizen deserves the same respect and protection under the law. As Mills is led away in handcuffs, the same cuffs he'd used to humiliate two innocent men, James and Marcus walk out of the courthouse as free men. The sun hits their faces as reporters surround them with questions. How does it feel to be vindicated? one reporter asks. James looks directly into the camera. It feels like justice, but it shouldn't have taken an admiral and security footage to get here. How many people don't have that kind of help? How many innocent people are sitting in jail right now because someone like Mills decided to abuse their power? Marcus adds, we fought overseas to protect the freedoms that Officer Mills tried to take away from us at home. Real heroes don't wear uniforms because they have to. They wear them because they choose to serve something bigger than themselves. The story spreads across the country, a reminder that truth has power when good people stand up for it. Mills faces criminal charges and loses his job, his reputation destroyed by his own lies. James and Marcus return to their duties, stronger for having faced injustice and won. And the message rings clear. No badge, no uniform, no position of power gives anyone the right to trample on justice. Truth will always find a way to shine through the darkness, especially when brave people refuse to stay silent. The story ends, but the lesson remains. Stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard.